Hey, guys. I have a very special guest today. Her name is Kathryn Monaco-Douglas. Kathryn is an inspiration, and you are soon to find out why. Kathryn had the incredible tragedy of losing her husband. She's a widow. And she, in the first 3 months of her difficulty in losing her husband, she tried to seek out help. And she was not able to get into any kind of a support group or any place that could help her. Because they told her they needed her to wait the 3 months prior to entering into the group. And what this beautiful woman did, 17, it's probably 18 years now, that she decided to start her own support group for widows and widowers and it's called Widows Not Alone. And she has developed an incredible support system where she sees people, she sees them in the earliest time of their grief, and she walks them through her support group and her program. She also does grief coaching. She has a beautiful story that I'm very, very fascinated to share with you. As you know, I am a widow, and I understand the struggle of trying to find help. And she is exemplary in taking what we love here on Allison Answers, taking tragedy and turning it into triumph. She has triumphed in so many ways, and she has led so many people out of darkness. So without any further ado, we're going to speak to Kathryn Monaco-Douglas. Hey, guys, how are you today? It is Allison from Allison Answers and Lager Counseling Services. As you know, I have a guest that is near to my heart because of the incredible work that she does in my area, and it is expanding and it is incredible. So this is a story of a woman who has taken her tragedy and created it into triumph and multiplied it for countless widows and widowers who felt they had nowhere to turn. And I would imagine, I'm certain of it, I'm just spiritually certain of it, that Kathryn has probably saved many people from either a real live death or a spiritual death, an emotional death. And just by being available to see them, to understand them, and to provide hope to people who probably don't know what the hell to do. So as a widow, it means a lot to me, because when I was searching for a place, this is who comes up when you Google, what do I do? I'm a widow. What the hell do I do? And this is a woman who, she's boots on the ground, head, heart, feet, all in the same spot. Her words, I used to say to my husband, your words have feet. That's what I would say. Your words have feet, because his words always were coupled with action. And that's how I see you. So I want to welcome you to the show. And
Thank you.
it's a pleasure to have you. What I would love for you to share with everyone is how you got here and your backstory, because I know that you've taken tragedy and you've taken chicken shit and you made it into chicken salad, is what you've done.
Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you. And I didn't do it intentionally. It just kind of happened that way. Not like I said, oh, this is what I'm going to do. It just kind of happened that way because of what I went through. So in the year 2000, I lost my husband, Larry. I was 42 years old at the time. And I was seeing a therapist and crying my eyes out. And she closed her eyes on me while I was in therapy. And the first time she did it, I didn't say anything. The second time I went back, she did it again. And I said to her, are you sleeping? And she said, no, I'm listening with my eyes closed. But I was so insulted. So I left and I never went back. So it's not like I said to myself, oh, she didn't work, so I'll go look into another therapist. I just felt because that happened, I'm not going to see any therapist. which sometimes people do that. Like I
Yes.
say, people do it with food. Like if you ate a piece of salmon and it was bad, you'll never eat salmon again,
Yes.
And I kind of did that. I kind of judged everyone on this one person. And I'm not thinking straight. It was a sudden loss. He had a blood clot. We didn't know what was wrong with him. We went to the doctor and they sent us home. And the next day I went to the store. When I came home, he was gone. So there wasn't any warning. He wasn't like he was sick. He was 44. I have 3 kids, 18, 14, and 11 at the time. So it was all shocking. Like my whole life got turned around. And my sister signed me up for a support group. So when the therapist didn't work out, I figured, okay, I'll go to the support group. And so I called them up and I said, I need to come in sooner, And they said, no, you can't come in because you're before 3 months. That's a thing on Long Island. I don't know if it's other places, but you have to be 3 months. And it's like, what? I
Who
got
made that
rejected.
rule?
It wasn't a widow, I'll tell you that. So I left there discouraged, and I was in a really bad place, like really dark thoughts. Like I didn't think I could live without my husband, and I was in a really bad place. In the middle of the night, I had to call a friend to come because I didn't think I'd make it through the night. That's how bad it was. So I waited my time, and then I finally went into the support group, and they were sitting around a circle, like one flew over the cuckoo's nest. I kind of felt like I feel crazy, and they're all sharing the details, like all the details of what had happened. And I'm grieving. Like I'm not a therapist that listens to 10 stories at once. I can't handle their stories on top of my grief. And I was like, who made that rule, right? That you get to share all your details. So they get to me, I'm sobbing by the time they got to me because I'm taking on everybody. I feel people like I'm like feeling for all of them, their pain, and I'm taking it on. And by the time they got to me, I'm a mess. So when that group was over, it takes 8 weeks for a support group. So that group's over, and I feel like I need more. And there is no more. It's done. So now you got to go looking for another place where you could do a support group. So I go across town and I find my own support group. And I go in there, and now I'm 42, and these women were about 65 to 70 years old. That's what they put me with at 42. How is their situation? Their kids are grown and out. If they had kids, they're not raising kids solo. There was no way I could relate to them. I sit in the room and they start doing the detail sharing again. And now it's 5 months after my loss. I got up and I was like, who made these rules? It wasn't a widow. And I stormed out. And I promised myself on the way home, driving home as I was sobbing in the car, that if I ever got past this, that I would go back. And there was someone that I met in the first group, and we really started meeting every week, with the group as friends. And then after about like a year or so, he lived near me. He had 3 kids too. We were the same age. Our spouses were the same age. We were both into running and fitness. So we had a lot of commonalities. And he said to me, would you ever think about dating? And I was like, dating? No. Larry was my one and only, And he was like, I said, but you know what? If I ever dated anyone, it would have to be someone like you. Because he was so sensitive when he would talk about his wife, Sally, like he would cry. And I was like, wow, this guy really gets it, And he said, you would date me? And I said, no, I'm someone like you. And he goes, because I'll stop dating if you'll date me. And I was like, no, don't do that. And I didn't want to keep saying that because I didn't want to make him feel bad. And he said, I'm not going to date anyone. I said, it could take me a year. It could take me 2 years. He goes, I'll wait 2 years.
Wow.
And that's what I said. I was like, wow, I can't talk about this right now. I was like, how did this conversation even happen, And I went in that night and the kids were all out and the house was empty and I was by myself. And I was like, what am I doing? Larry's not coming back. I'm all by myself. I'm lonely. I hate this life. What's a cup of coffee? So I went for a cup of coffee with him and we've been together ever since. And now I'm married to him almost as long as I was to my first husband.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that marriage, does you were saying that he was sensitive and would, cry about his late wife. What was that like for you guys when pain would come up? Like how, because I
Oh,
think that people who do not understand could become jealous, of someone who's passed, right? I think it's really something that happens.
I think someone that's never been there could be jealous.
Yeah.
But someone who's been through widowhood has a understanding of the depth that the pain is. It's like right to your soul, like it
Yeah.
takes. So I really believe that when we get married, we become one person, like our
Mhm.
souls are connected. And when I lost Larry, I lost a part of me. Like I didn't
Yes.
know who I was anymore. I only knew my identity with him. It's weird. You
Wow.
had an identity before, but once you got married, it's like it just, we did for each other,
Yeah.
for 3 years we were together. So it was years and it's habitual, the same things, the routine, everything.
Yes.
And, there's all those secondary losses, I lost an income. I had to sell my house. I lost my cheerleader that gave me the
Yes.
courage to do the things that I did. The person who I went to for everything was Larry. And now this big thing, tragic thing happened to me. And he's not here to tell or help me through it.
Yes.
So those secondary losses were big for me. And no one around me got it except Scott, my husband now. He's the only one that got it. So when I would have a painful moment, he would just see it on my face. He would say, "You're having a Larry moment."
Oh,
And I would be like, "Yeah, I'm having a Larry moment." He would always get it. I don't feel like dancing today. A song would come on that would remind me of Larry. He would get it. He's very sensitive to all that. So after we got married, I adopted his kids. He has 3 kids. And a year after we were married, I said to him, "I'm ready to go back. I want to do support groups." And the first place I called was where we met. We met at the Jewish Y. And I went there and they said, "No, you have to be a social worker or a psychologist. You can't do it." And I was like, "But I
they
lifted."
didn't think yeah, exactly. They didn't think that your loss was the degree enough.
Yeah. It's almost like
Mhm.
they need credentials, but the credentials
Bullshit.
is I lived it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. Because I was going to do a talk at the library and he told me, "What's your credentials?" And I was like, 17 years of support groups and I lived it. Um, you know, that's not enough. I mean, I'm doing this for years. So, anyway, going forward, I went to the church and a little nun answered the phone because I knew my church didn't have anything. And I said, "Is it possible I could do support groups there?" And she said, "I can't believe that you're calling me. I just finished praying for help with bereavement." She gave me like the goosebumps.
Love it.
Like, what? So I went down right away and they sent me for training.
Mm.
And after a year, I did 2 years of training, but after 1 year, I started the group. And it was for elderly women, but I was just trying to get practice. And they gave me the confidence to keep going because they were like, "You helped us so much. This was so wonderful. We can't believe we're your first group." And then the second group was exactly what I was trying to do. They were all young, like in their 30s and 40s. And then it just caught on from word of mouth. So I was doing one group for 10 years and then actually for 7 years. And then we lost one of our kids. And I couldn't, I had one person that would help me, volunteering and helping me. And then when we lost my husband's son, his oldest one, I was like, "I can't do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this." And I went to see a priest at the church. I'm like, "I can't do this again." Like I did the grief thing. "I can't do this again. Like with 2 widows this is like," and he said, "Just try to take the focus off yourself." And I had 25 people waiting and I did that group and that group saved me. Honestly, it really did. I actually wrote a letter to the priest thanking him for telling me that. I don't think it was avoidance as much as it was that's what I was used to doing for 7 years. I never stopped. I was doing it all year round. And that's what I knew. And it was just like I was doing something like my old life, and it felt right. And I knew that I was helping them, and it helped me by helping them. And I got 2 volunteers out of that group. And now we have 30 volunteers and 5 trainees.
Love
So,
it.
and we did actually 13 groups in one season. So we've actually increased from doing one group, now we're doing so many groups.
Could you describe the group to us?
So we do not share the details of
Oh,
loss
oh,
because I
okay. Mhm.
they sit
Yes.
around, but we say how they pass, but we don't share the details of how they pass. I only share how they pass, like, because my husband was medical negligence. And I feel like if somebody else thinks that their spouse might be medical negligence, they might want to speak to me about it and say, what lawyer did you use or something like that, you know? So I like that commonality that people, it's like an icebreaker too, like if it's the same kind of thing. I take people before the 3 months. I actually took someone last group that was only 2 weeks. So I only go up to 2 years because it's a setback to be in a room with people that are early grievers. So I'm really known for early grief. I only go up to the age of 65 because I'm really about young people that are trying to raise their children and trying to do this solo. But I do take people up to the age of 65. I've done older groups. I just don't have enough volunteers. We're packed.
You,
We're full. We have full groups. We have sometimes up to 13, 14 people in a room. And
what
that's
is
the
your
most,
requirement for a volunteer?
they didn't have to be in my group. I've had people that weren't in the group that wanted to volunteer. They train for a year, and then I do a 3-hour class with them. So in the year, they observe 3 different groups. So they could see how the facilitator controls the group and keeps it going. The whole thing is like, you know, sometimes when someone's grieving, they think it's therapy and they want it to be the session to be all about them and what they're going through. And we can't allow that because we're a group. We have to give everyone a chance to speak, you know.
Yes.
So at some point, I have to say, I'm sorry, but we have to move on, you know, and I keep the group going so that everyone gets to share. And then we have a topic. So for the 8 weeks, we have a different topic each week. Like we talk about dreams and signs and taking care of yourself. And we give a list of therapists that they can go to. And we really try to help them, you know, while they're going through this heavy time.
You
It's a
know,
heavy.
there were some things that you brought up that were really just powerful. Like I felt like tears filling in my eyes, you know? And when you were describing secondary losses, it, at first, what I was thinking about is that, you know, and you were describing with Larry that your lives were so, and, you know, blended, like entwined together. I had the same thing, of course. So everywhere you look, they are. Everything you do, you did it with them. So now there's this gaping hole with everything, everywhere, you know? And I remember it was, you know, within the first couple of days, my son's mother-in-law, who's, you know, family to me, she said, you know, when I lost my dad, she was young, she said, I lost my mom too. And she said that, and it was interesting, it was because I just said right before that, I can never watch American Idol again. And then just lovely, in such a lovely way, she described her situation. She wasn't correcting me. And she said, you know, everything that my mom did with my dad, which was everything, she stopped doing. So she stopped living. And I just heard it and I was like, I'm not going to let that happen to me. And I said, turn on American Idol. And and it hurt. But and then like every Sunday we would ride bikes on the boardwalk, my husband and I, or we'd walk. We always did it early in the morning and it was our thing. So what I was going to do is let the boardwalk not be a part of my life anymore. And I said to myself, well, the boardwalk didn't die. The beach didn't die. I didn't die. So I have to find a way to have a relationship with the boardwalk without my husband. And, you know, and
That's amazing.
mm,
That's amazing.
it's just like
Because I
walking
wish I
through
would have
that.
had someone say that to me
Yes.
because my daughter did lose me.
Yes, I
And
understand that.
she lost me for a while. I was out, and years later, I went back and I said to my kids, I'm sorry. I said to both my boys, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you. And the boys were like, what are you kidding, Ma? You're the best mom. And then I went to my daughter, and she was the youngest one. I said, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you in the way you needed me. And she cried.
Yeah.
And when she cried, I knew I hit a nerve. And what I did was I said, she was off on Fridays. I said, how about every Friday I come to you and we do something to make up for what we lost when
Yeah.
you were, because I had to work full time. I was working a lot of hours. She really lost me
Yes.
emotionally, physically, but I kept providing for her. So I kept thinking I was there for her, but I was
Yes.
totally absent. And that's what a lot
Yes.
of people don't get. You're there, you're paying for their clothes, their food, their camp, whatever you're doing, you think you're doing it for them, but they want quality time. They want you.
That's all they want.
And they want the old you.
Yes.
So hard to find that, when you're hurting so much, so hard to pull that back. But we did create a relationship by me going there every week. We'd go to the museum, and we both like art. We're both artists. So it was good for both of us. And we
Yeah.
regained a relationship. I share that with others. It's just something that sometimes we don't reflect on,
Yeah.
just keep going forward. We don't go back.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Tell me what you think of this, Kathryn. I believe now, I'm not sure if I believed it then, but I th- I think immediately the person that I was, like even trying to locate her, there after that tragedy, you're never the same. All these different muscles are built, all these different perspectives. I feel like even the depth of compassion grows because you care so much more about people's pain. And it's like, even though this is such a tragedy, and I always hesitate saying this about this, but I might have mentioned this to you. I don't know, but um, I knew really early on because I was scared. It hurt like hell. And I knew that, and I met with my kids and I said, somehow we have to find a way to gain more than we lost. I don't know how, but that has to be the goal. I don't care how long it takes. It could take our lifetime. So I would write down, I had a journal next to my bed. I would just jot down what I gained that day. You know, because we're all huddled in the house, because we're traumatized and fragile, I was like, okay, what do we gain today? We gained a day of all looking at one another and being authentic in our feelings. That's a day gained, even though it's because of a tragedy, right? So it's like the perspective that, this is happening for me. I mean, it sounds so horrible to say when you're,
No, I get totally. Because I always say that, I grew so much spiritually.
yes.
I grew so much. Like you said, my compassion is so deep. Like people say to me, like like somebody said it to me last night, when I called you, you spent an hour on the phone with me
Mhm.
because I get it. I know the pain. I would never like just rush somebody off the phone. I don't want anyone to take my calls sometimes because I know that I'm the only one is this one woman that I know she's going to do the same thing I do, spend time. And like now we're waiting for the fall groups. People are registering now for fall. I'll give them a couple of books. I'll tell them start journaling. Like I'll start giving them some tools because I want them to not be during the summer with nothing because
Yes.
I feel their pain. I like they made me wait and it was horrible. And
Yes.
everyone you talk to is different. But I talked to someone last week that hasn't been out of bed in a month. And
Mm.
I'm like, you're scaring your kids. You're scaring them. You need to, start with therapy. You need to start getting up, and if you don't like this therapist, call me, let me know. I'll give you another therapist, because you got to get out of bed.
Yes. It's
That's
good you
fun.
did that.
Yeah, it's not. So I never know who's going to call me, what the situation
Yeah.
is, but I always give them the time. I feel that I reflect a lot on my life. Like if something happens, a conflict of some sort, I'll sit and think, was there something that I did? Where before I would have just kept on going.
Yes.
Like I reflect more about life. I know that
Yes.
I'm just passing through.
Yes.
No, this isn't it. And
Yes.
because I lost him so young, I learned that at a very young age.
You did.
And every day I'm cognizant of where I am, who I'm with, you know, of life, you know, treating people right, not fighting with people, not arguing with people. You know, a lot of people have expectations with grief that this person should call or this person should be there for me. I'm like, well, this is where we learn true colors, right? When we're hurting, you know, you could have a friend all the time you're happy, but if that friend's not around when you're hurting, then that's not a friend.
You
That's
know
an
what's
acquaintance.
you know what's cool about that? I feel like I've learned this through loss, that I've noticed, which we've discussed, that when that happens, people don't know how to interact with you anymore. So they've lost that part of you as well. That was, and maybe they have expectations even when they see you, like it's just a feeling like, oh, are you like almost like you feel like you have to be sad for them or happy for them or whatever it is. And I feel like it's 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 a loss all around, like, and also I think it upgrades your friendships because it kind of clears out anything that really wasn't meant to be there.
Yeah, I agree. Some people are there for a reason or a season, right?
Yeah.
It does. It cleans out friendships. It lets you know who family is, who isn't. Um,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of times people just don't know how to act with grief. You know, no one's taught how do we act in
No,
grief. You know,
no.
where do we learn it from? Families, how do they act? How do, you know, culturally, some families are more dramatic than others, and some people don't want to talk about it at all. And we do need to speak about our grief. You know,
Yeah.
we need that place where we could share and say, you know, I'm hurting. You know, I need to talk. I need something to push me today. What's going to help me? You know?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's really it's incredible because I think about, I notice that with people who are grieving, that I'm just aware of it, that they immediately lose people. Like after the 2 weeks, all the not celebration, all the, you know,
The funeral services,
yes.
everything's
I mean,
over, and
Christians
then
call it
you they
celebration,
all,
so that's why
yeah,
I
they
said that.
go in front of you and they say anything at all that you need, and then they're gone. And then where are
Yes.
they? And I hear that all
Yeah.
the time, and and I tell them it's common. This is
Yeah.
what people do. They don't know what you need. If you
No.
don't tell them what you need, they don't know. You have
No.
to ask for it. And I know it seems terrible that the widow would have to ask for
Yes.
help, but it's the only way you're going to get it because it's communication. You have to tell them what you need. If you need help with your kids or, you know, whatever, if you need help in the house or whatever it is. So I set up things like I have these private Facebook groups. I have one where if you need a handyman or somebody to plow you out in the snow to get to work, like we network it between the
Love
widows.
that.
And it's a great group. We all help each other. For one woman didn't know what was wrong with her hot water heater, and it was the pilot. And one of the guys said, "Just put the light on the bottom."
I
It's
love
just,
that.
but we don't know as widows. But we need this communication. Like, well, what's happening with Social Security? You know, my son's turning 18. Do I still get it? Does it get? You know, all these questions. So we have all these private groups that we ask these questions, and we help each other. It's
Wow.
widows help widows. And even my facilitators, they're all widowed. And that helps too, because we all lived it. So we all know. And I think that gives hope to the people that are coming in, you know, that we went through it, we survived it. Some of us got married again, some of us didn't. But my community after the 8 weeks stays connected. So that was the thing that I didn't like, that I had to go somewhere else. They don't have to go anywhere else. You know, like I'm having a picnic in June, you know, like we gather, you know, all the groups from all the years,
Oh, you
whatever
just
year.
bring them all together? Oh, I love that. That's so
Gather. We have a
cool.
Halloween gathering. We've had dinners out. We've had all different types of gatherings over the years. So we stay connected, and they like that. They don't have to keep seeking, you
You
know. And
know,
go
I'm
ahead. I'm
sorry.
sorry.
No, I wanna hear what you have to say.
I was going to say every day I post something on the Facebook page, something inspirational. You know, like yesterday, it's like you could have one day good and 2 days bad. Or you could go a whole week thinking you're doing great, and then all of a sudden have the worst day. Like, and sometimes you don't even know why.
Yep.
Sometimes it's seasonal change that you're
Yes.
not picking up what it is.
Yes.
Oh, and so I post these things, there's seasonal changes that we feel that we had with them and we did things with them in this weather. Now the weather comes and we don't know why we just like are feeling so down. And
Yes.
I think awareness makes a difference when you know what's happening to you. You say, okay, this is what's happening. This is why I'm feeling this way. And we can help ourselves.
I believe that probably more than most things when it comes to helping people, that truth is a pathway to all freedom. And like being able to be aware of why something is going on, we're not as afraid,
Right.
so yeah, that
Even
helps.
like that fog, that heavy
Yes.
fog that you're in, like I tell them, it's your brain. You've been traumatized. When you say like it felt like it happened yesterday,
Yes.
but for me it's 23 years. Why does it feel like I can tell you what I was wearing? That's the amygdala. It's protecting me,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That part of the brain. I get it now because I know what's happening and why I feel that way, and that's normal.
Yes.
Oh, it's not something to be concerned about.
Yes. And it's like, I think what can happen, like neurologically, they'll call it like one long emotional response. So let's say you get hit with the trauma and it's almost like a spasm. And so it can, when we were talking earlier about understanding that you don't lay down and die, you don't stay in bed, because it can be one long emotional response, because our need to just be comforted, it's so compelling to be in that state of being,
Yeah,
like a victim, so it's
you
like,
are.
yes, exactly. But it's like, how do you take that and create something great out of it? And if you don't know what's happening to you, how can you do that? That's why,
Right.
yeah,
So like the decision making
yeah,
is compromised. I feel like, that's the prefrontal cortex, the focusing, the concentrating, the decision making. So I tell them like, sometimes, and everybody knows this, like with men, and grief. That's the other thing. Like a lot of grief groups only do it for women. I do it for women and men.
yeah,
And because I want the men also to be educated that like one, you need to cry, you need to
yes,
release, because men try to hold everything in, and that the decision making, like if you date, if you, a lot of them want to date to get rid of the pain. And I'm like, try to figure out who you are first,
yes,
because your decision making, you can't see a red flag, in a person or someone that's not right for you. And a lot of times they'll come to me because I stay connected years later and they're like, I don't know what I was thinking. Like she's a narcissist,
yes,
because they weren't thinking, because they couldn't think straight, So I
yes,
try to educate them that this is what's your whole, your thinking, your focus, your conscious, it's all hijacked right now by grief. So you need to give yourself time to heal.
yes.
It takes time to heal. And so we keep the groups, they keep meeting. So I rent rooms at the church and I allow them to come into the rooms in the church, or they can go out to eat, and they keep meeting. And
They
and
go
then
with
they,
one another. They go like
well, yeah. So
without
like
a,
if we have 12 people in a group, that group stays together. And then when we have our gatherings, we bring all the groups together.
so nice.
So it's support. I tell them it's not just bereavement and learning about grief, but you're going to support each other. A lot of people say that my program is similar to AA, which I don't know because I wasn't in it, but they say it's similar. It's that constant mentorship and helping and support and love. I mean, I
It's a
really care.
family.
Yeah, we're like a family. Yeah.
And like, I know the 12-step program pretty well, and it's like it's a spiritual design for living. It's a way of, and it is like that anything that you need, there's always someone there who's willing, as willing as the dying can be. It's like almost like when you've had a hardship, or a trauma, every person who's sitting at that table is the same as you. It doesn't matter the differences and anything.
Right. We were all relating on the trauma that
Yeah.
we can't, we're all feeling the same things to our brain.
Yeah.
We're all traumatized and we're all trying to get through it. And
Yes.
everyone has that loss of identity with widowhood
Yeah.
that, I didn't feel that when we lost our son. I still
Yes.
feel like I'm a mother. But when I lost Larry, I lost who I was,
Yes.
and a lot of people, which I don't think most people know this, but a lot of people hook up with their like high school sweetheart. Like they're together since high school. you
You
know?
mean this is their loss, you mean?
Yeah, well, they're partners. They know from high school, like they're together from when they're 16 or 15 or 12 or like I met my husband when I was 21, like, and I thought that was young. They're together since, like, I ask everyone in the group, every group, how did you meet? How did you meet? And I hear it all the time. We met in high school. He used to be my neighbor. We know each other since we're 9. I hear these stories all the time. There's so many people that are with someone, like, and that's it, their whole life. They don't know anything other than that person. And then when this happens, they're devastated. They're devastated because their whole life has been with this one person.
Yes.
So that's part of the identity loss.
Yeah. And it's interesting when somebody's with someone since they're a child, it's part of their biological, their development, the development of their brain. It's all intertwined, because we share brain waves. It's very, you have to get your own brainwave when they
Yeah.
die.
Yep.
Seriously, it's
It
like
takes time to
heavy.
do that. It's really heavy. It's a
Yeah.
heavy healing. It takes a long time to heal from it. And that's why I encourage the friendships and the connection and the place of belonging, because we
Yes.
feel like we don't belong in society because all our friends are married, and the people that are divorced they're not loving and missing their person. They're angry.
Yes.
It's a different type of loss. It's
Totally.
still a loss, but it's a different type. And my parents were divorced, so I know
Yeah. It's not
this
by
is,
choice.
yeah, this, and sometimes divorce is not by choice, but it's a different type of loss. This is a trauma that happens to some of the people that, watching someone fade away that you love, that's ill, and being a
Yes.
caretaker for years, or like for me, walking into the house and finding my husband like that. It's just so traumatizing to my entire body, and the PTSD is awful, like for years, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I
Yeah.
wanted to, just ask you about that because there were two things I was going to mention is because just from my personal experience, not anything even professional, just there were two things I noticed was definitely PTSD. So I still have it. I mean, definitely.
I've had it for years. Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes
It's
a long
kind of
time
like,
for that to fade.
yeah. So it's kind of like almost you just know when it's happening. Like it could be like a certain store or like that feeling that like that wave, like you're going to throw up or you a punch in the stomach. And it's just anxiety for me anyhow. So in a
Mhm.
store.
Yeah.
And I remember like early on, I used to feel like a baby, like literally like a toddler. So if I was out and I was out too long, I knew that I need to almost like a baby needs to go home and take a nap. I didn't take a
Oh,
nap, but
that's
I
so
needed to
funny because
be.
someone said that last night in group. Exactly that. She doesn't like to be out. She feels like she
Yes,
always has to go back home.
yes,
Yeah.
I felt that. And
Yeah.
it's, I had an incredible blessing, in my life where I work because the people that I work with just took over. They just ran my business. They went into my house. I had a Rottweiler who was pretty ferocious at that time. And basically, they didn't care. They went in, they got all the food. Like, I couldn't think how to get people going to come back from the funeral. What do I do? They did everything. And then they supported me nonstop at any time here. And that's when I knew who this is my family
Mhm.
because like,
My
and
friends did that as well. I know what you mean. Like, you know who your friends are. Like, they came to my rescue.
that's what it felt like.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
come to
and
us.
like
Yeah.
a rescue mission, right?
Yep.
And like they do what it takes
Yep.
to
Those
make
are
it happen.
yeah.
And I was curious, the other thing I was going to bring up, because I'm sure you have a wealth of experience with it, is that what I noticed, because I had a traumatic loss in my 20s, and then I again had another loss, right?
Mhm.
So when I had that initial traumatic loss, what I found, I don't know how long in, I was in this horrible rage internally. Even when I was driving, like I hated people. When I would see people happy, like, and I couldn't control it. Like I
Mhm.
wasn't doing anything to people, but it was this burning, horrible bitterness.
Mhm.
So I knew after my husband died, that was the one thing I was like, I have to make sure I don't go back there.
Mhm.
But for like a 3-month period, I couldn't shake anger. I couldn't control it. It was just there. And I just was angry. And I was like, I didn't want to be near anyone because I knew it wasn't me. And I knew that I could just cause some damage or something, right?
There are people that are very angry from, especially because I do young loss,
Yes.
and they're very angry. And sometimes you can hear it in their voice when they're speaking that
Yes.
they're very angry. I experienced anger because it was medical negligence,
Yeah.
so I experienced anger there. I didn't, it didn't go out to anyone. I did have some bitterness, like I remember looking at someone that I remember, and it's a terrible thing to say, but I was like, it was somebody that didn't care about their life. They were a mess. And I was like, how did they get to live? And he was such
Yeah.
a good man. So I was doing that thing. And I was like, when that thought came, I like paused and I was like, who am I? Like, that was horrible. It was like, it felt evil to me. And
Yeah.
I was like, I am never going back there again, like with my thoughts. And I stopped myself. I wouldn't allow myself to be bitter like that. I didn't want to grow old and be bitter and hateful. But I remember like 3 years into my loss, I was dating Scott. And so just because I was dating didn't mean he took on my responsibilities. I was supporting my household and my kids, and I was working full time, and it snowed. And I had to shovel the snow, and I was taking paints in and out of my truck because I was painting murals. I'm an artist. That was what I was doing to support my kids and I. And it snowed again. And it just, that winter was horrible. And I remember falling in the snow and hysterical crying and looking up and thinking, God, why do you hate me so much? And just losing it. Like no one offered to help. Like people don't say someone's 3 years. Let me see, maybe she needs help shoveling the snow. No one. And Scott
Yes.
couldn't shovel my snow. He was getting up early doing his own thing. He's got his own 3 kids at the time. It's only my boyfriend. It doesn't mean he has to shovel my driveway.
Yes.
So I really felt alone, like I was really, I guess that's why I named the group Widowed Not Alone, because I really felt alone in my grief. It was a horrible feeling.
You know, it's incredible what you just said. I'm like crying because you said it because I remember my
Well,
first big snow, like
it's
how
overwhelming.
overwhelming. And when I had to like figure out the sprinklers, I remember crying in my backyard.
Everything was so overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
Everything. And
Yeah.
so we go around the room and I say to everyone in the group, I'll say, well, what do you feel? Give me one word that describes what you're feeling right now, and
We're
they'll say overwhelmed, hollow. One girl said last week, fake. I feel fake
oh,
because all day I'm trying to be like what everybody wants me to be, but I'm really not that. I'm in so much pain.
yes. We have
So,
a oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I was just saying, like, so they could be in touch with the feelings, because we need to recognize them to get past them.
Yes. It's like blowing your nose or going to the bathroom, really. And I think we think that feelings, I tell people all the time that when we hold feelings in, they feel more primitive. So what ends up happening is that then it feels like if I cry, I'll never stop, or if I'm angry, I'll kill someone. But it really isn't true. And it's just if we get comfortable moving through them, just even think of how long 5 minutes is. Most people don't cry for 5 minutes straight, maybe early on,
Yeah,
but
we
it's
did
like,
early on.
yeah, well, forget it, like hours. But
Yeah.
I mean, just in a moment when you have like that wave of pain, like you can let it move through you. It's incredible to do that if we
I think,
can. Hmm.
right. I think what I'd like people to know is the intensity. That
Yes.
intensity in the beginning gets easier.
Yes.
So I think that when we're in that intense beginning with those
Yes.
grief waves and all that pain and the dark thoughts, and we're just existing and we're like fake and all that, we think that's going to be like that forever, but it isn't. As we start to move forward with our lives, it starts letting up, it gets less, but everyone is different. It takes some people longer because we have to do work. It doesn't happen without doing the work. We have to seek therapy. Some people need EMDR. They
Mhm.
need a little bit more therapy depending on
Yes.
what their grief is. I thought you were going to say before when you said you had another loss before, because I had the two losses, my husband and then my son. When my son's name was Brett, but when he died, I called my best friend and I kept saying Larry died, because
Oh,
two traumas got like combined. Like I never went for therapy for my loss for Larry.
wow.
And I
Yes.
just kind of buried it somewhere, and then
Yes.
when Brett passed, it kind of came out,
Yes.
because I never did the work on that,
I'll tell you, that right there is because all of these different things that happen, like with EMDR is incredible. We do that here, but it's like we don't realize like these moments. We were discussing this off camera. Like if we feel someone like isn't there for us, or
Right.
let's say people are dating and somebody like ghosts them, it can feel like traumatic, like they're
Absolutely.
actually experiencing the grief of the loss of their spouse
Right. And they
because
don't
it's an
realize it.
avenue.
Yeah,
Yes.
because they have to work on that first.
Yes,
That's
because
why
it's a
it's important to
gift.
work on your grief and
Yes.
figure out who you are before you move forward in certain areas, because those people could destroy us. Like going
Mhm.
out with so many women will go out too soon and then they're like, I'm in heavy grief because it didn't work out, because they didn't work on it in the first place. If you
Yes.
work on it and you're more independent, you can pull yourself together better.
Yeah.
It doesn't destroy you. And they'll say to me, when do you think I'm ready to date? And I'll say, well, you're ready to date if you could handle a rejection.
That's such
Yeah.
a cool answer.
Yeah.
That's a
If it,
great answer.
like it doesn't break you apart, like you could handle it and say, okay, you're not the one for me then. I know what real love feels like. I had it, right? I had real love. So if somebody's not right for me, I'll know it because I know what real love is.
I'll tell you something. That is how I think. Because once you've really had real, I mean, I love the fudge out of my husband, like truly. And it's not just because he passed. Like I mean it, like one and only like person. And what I could have done is said, I'm never gonna because I did. And I even had a friend who said, you're never gonna find somebody that was in a relationship like that. She's still with me, but it's just funny, like because it was so good. He was so cool. We were just such a good
Right.
friends. And we had a couple of difficulties here or there, but it was just good. And so I feel like um it at first it would make me think like I will never be able to ever find anyone who could, this is not possible. But then I pivoted that thought and I thought, if I could love like that before and we could have something successful, how come that means I could do it again? And it doesn't, and that's the thing, like
It
you don't
doesn't have to
realize.
be the same person, though.
No.
Like, I love Scott for the things that Scott is. He's nothing at all like Larry. He doesn't remind me of Larry. And that I kind of liked. Like, I didn't
Yes.
want to replace Larry.
No.
There's only going to be one him,
Yes.
spirit and who he was is there's only one, you know. And I love Scott for who he is. He was like my best friend. He helped me through. He's like my hero, He saved me from my pain when I was in it, because I there was no one else that got me to this day. He's Jewish, so he lights those Yitzhak candles, like when it's Sally's anniversary. So I kind of picked it up. I like that. So I took the candles and I started lighting them when it was Larry's birthday or his death anniversary. And one morning I woke up and it was the anniversary of Larry's passing, and Scott took the candle out for me.
Yes. Very sweet.
Like
I
he
would love for you to share about that because I really do think, I definitely think that's possible. And I don't think you should, but I think that that's unique. And like, I think that because of people's own fear or insecurity, that I mean, I'm not sure how I would even do with that, even though, like, because always want to be like the most special, in a relationship. So I just wonder, how you guys do that emotionally. I understand that you get it. That definitely is a power right there. But like the feeling of knowing that, he so vividly loved someone and you so vividly loved someone. How did you, how do you, How do you not feel jealous, I guess, would be the answer.
Yeah, there's no jealousy. There's no jealousy.
Hmm.
There is no jealousy. I pray for Sally
Yeah. Hmm.
when I pray for Larry. He
Yeah.
prays for Larry when he prays for Sally. We pray for each other. So I don't believe, I believe someday we'll all be somewhere together.
Yes.
And you know what I'm saying? Like I don't
Larry met Sally.
yeah, here you go.
Like Harry met Sally, right?
That's so funny. But I don't believe that this is it. I believe
No.
that this is our journey and what we do with it makes a difference.
Yes.
Like this is my journey. I felt that calling on my heart that I had to go back. And because one person died, I helped thousands of people. Like I
Yes.
feel like that's Larry's legacy. I didn't just let Larry die. I kept his memory alive. I talk about him all the time because I'm always helping other widows, and my grandchildren know who he is, and they go to the cemetery and they know that's Grandpa Lawrence, and my grandson's name is Lawrence, and I live my street name is Lawrence, just a sign. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
You know,
It's just
that's,
crazy.
and it's almost like, I mean, obviously we don't know, but it's almost like the contribution that Larry made is incredible.
So this is really weird because Larry had a premonition 2 weeks before he died. He told me he felt like he had no more goals. And I was like, what? And I didn't want to talk about it because it made me upset. And he came home from work and he goes, I want you to listen to me. And he grabbed both my hands and he said, I want you to look at me when I'm talking. This is important to me. And I was like, why? He goes, I feel like I have no more goals. And I'm like, you're hurting my feelings. And he says, no, it's not about you. I'm trying to tell you how I feel. I go, okay, tell me how you feel. He says, I feel like I got my business where I wanted it to be. The kids are exactly, I mean, they used to fight when they were little. Now they were hugging each other. They were getting along so nicely. And him and I were exactly where we needed to be. We were two imperfect people who never gave up on each other. So we had things here and there, but we made it work, and we were finally at a good place and he felt happy about it. And then 2 weeks later, he died. And, I'm like, I completely forgot about the gold thing. And someone came to the house. It was a Eucharistic minister that lived in the neighborhood. And my mother's pushing me to the door and she's like, somebody's here for you. And I'm asking everyone, what does it say? Why would God take a young person like this? I don't know what the Bible's. Why did this happen to us? Like, I couldn't understand, like, why? Somebody give me an answer. Why is this happening? And she comes up to me with this medal that she takes out of this cup. And she said to me, God has a goal for Larry. And she hands me the medal. She could have said any other word, any other word. She could have said, God, he's with God.
A
He's a
plan.
God. She could have said anything, but she
Yes.
said, God has a goal for Larry. And my mind went right on the couch where he grabbed my hands. And I was like, God has a goal for Larry. And I wept with that medal and I wore it around my neck. And I was just wept with it. And when I like reflect, I think like my goal was connected to Larry's goal, like his life, he knew it was done. And my journey was to do this. I feel strong about this. The nun said she was praying when I called, like it was like
Yes.
connected somehow. It's like divine somehow that this is what I needed to do. And if it wasn't good, it wouldn't be growing the way it is. It's a good thing and it's helping many people, And during the pandemic, I was doing Zoom. I was helping people in Africa, Malaysia, Ireland, Australia. Just because they needed help. And I was able to sit there and help them through their grief. So I just feel like this is where I'm supposed to be.
It truly is. And the fact that you do what you do and that it's growing. What I think about here, counseling centers, I tell the therapists all the time that if you help one person who's a mom or a dad or whatever, or lives in a neighborhood, and you help to transform them to be aligned with who they're meant to be and in their greatness, basically you can change generations. You're going to
Absolutely.
change the children's lives. You being
Absolutely.
there for moms or dads who lost a spouse
It's a
young,
ripple effect. Absolutely.
forever.
Yeah. It's a ripple effect. And
You're
it
going to
goes
see
down.
it. You're going to see it, Kathryn, because you're going to see this is an exponent. I think you'd be surprised at how far you've probably already extended
I've
life change.
I have seen it in a lot
Seen
of
it.
different, like the girl in Africa is teaching. I try to teach her how to teach others because there was no bereavement there. The one in Malaysia, I try to teach her so that she could help others. I'm always looking to help someone help others because I feel like that was part of what I'm supposed to be doing. And widows are supposed to be helped, from the
Yes.
beginning. We're supposed to help widows. And I don't know where in society, maybe because we don't wear all black for a year, like the old Italians and the old Greeks, right? Maybe that people don't realize we're in pain.
Yes.
We're in a lot of pain and, we need help.
I'll tell you, it's very significant because I pretty much look like I have it together a lot of the times. And there are those moments when I'm in my house and just, you know, I had surgery recently and a hernia thing, and I was shocked how I was completely incapacitated. I couldn't do anything. I didn't expect it. And my daughter was 17 when it happened, and she basically was like a deer in headlights. She didn't know what to do, and she like just shut down. I think she felt overwhelmed with even the loss. Like there isn't some other adult here to help. Like what do I do? And she went in a room and closed the door, and I literally couldn't move.
Freeze response, right?
Yeah. Definitely. And the beauty of it, because it was a very, very, very bad emotional experience. I mean, I was sobbing and crying. I felt so alone, and I missed my husband because he was like a mother. He took care of me like a mommy would. I just loved that about him. But it's anything like that spurs you to the next level. Like what did I gain? My son and his wife came and they totally like took over, and they were like, I got so much more connected even to them. But what I learned is that, what I don't want to do this alone, you know, like forever. I think it's
Forever,
good. It's not
right?
good for a man to be alone.
Right.
Like eventually it's good to have a
It's
person.
okay. I
Yeah.
say that we don't, we're not moving on. In the beginning, we're like tripping over our grief. I say, like, I took it and I put it on the side of me and it
Mm.
walked with me as I moved forward.
Wow.
And I remarried and I never took Larry out of my life. And it's like, how you have one kid and then you have another, and you think when you had the first one, how can I love another one the way I
Yes.
love the first one? We have so much love in us,
True.
and just the way your husband loved you, someone else could love you.
Mhm.
And we just have, sometimes it's our limited thinking. We think, oh, and sometimes we're connected to the grief. Like we feel if we let go of that, then we're going to like be separated from them somehow, like just like their clothing. Like we think if we get rid of the clothing, we're going to erase them. Like all that kind of stuff happens with grief. And then we learn that, what, we can do this. We can separate from this and be okay and still love them. We don't
Yes.
have to beat them up. And I always say to everyone, if you start dating and you start talking about your husband and the other person is jealous or can't handle it, that's to me is a red flag. Like
Completely.
that's not your person, because if you have to stifle that your whole relationship with someone, then that's not healthy. Because
No.
that's not who you are. They come with us. This is my baggage, that I have this man that I'm always going to love and think about, and Scott has it with his wife, and it's okay, you know, it's okay. It doesn't ruin our relationship. In fact, it makes us closer because we have that understanding for each other that I don't know if anybody else would have been able to have.
Being able to allow your spouse or your person to be free, like freedom, I don't think you can have real intimacy without freedom. It's like, and you're
Right.
giving one another such great freedom to, do what you're doing.
Right. And I have another group that I created. I have all these little subgroups
I love it.
that if somebody was sick like yourself and needed help, we just put what town we're in. And somebody else that lives in that town could come over and drop off chicken soup or like something that you need, like, because there are people who don't have children that, lost their person. And so I created this group where somebody needs something, not a delivery from a store, but a real person to come over and say, is this something I could do for you, help you? What could I do? Because we never know what we might need,
I love that so much. I need you to I need to know all these places. Not for myself, I would want to contribute, and it's that right there, you're actually doing what really needs to be done, and it's weird because here, therapists are here. We see a client once a week or whatever, twice a week. But the way that I insist that every person who walks through here has favor. Like, it's not just that hour. This is a human being in your life.
Right. I feel that way. I feel everyone is important.
Yes.
So so this is for my bereavement groups, though. I'm not an open social group. So I'm bereavement first because I know the grief is important first. And I have to know that you did the grief work. And then all the other stuff is the perks of being in the bereavement support.
Love it.
Because I'm not a social coordinator. I'm a bereavement facilitator, and I want to help people with their grief. I want to direct them to people like you that have all these resources for them to go to and that they could help themselves. I give them books. I read all the time, and I'm always giving them grief books that are helpful, that helped me, that inspired me, So I'm always, or podcasts or something, anything that's going to help someone get through that week.
Yes. There's two things I want to say, and I could go forever, but you have like a skill that we're trained, as entrepreneurs, like in business, that I think they call it the blue ocean, I think, but it's like you've niched down. Intuitively, you've known to stay with who your people are. And
Yes.
I'm sure it's, education and divinely led, but to know that and to not waver from that is such a great skill. Like, to be able to, because you can help more people like that when you know what the main thing is.
Right. It's everything that I needed. It's everything I needed because I lived it. Everything I needed, that's what I created. When people were like, how do you know this? It's what I needed. It's what I also feel like, how you feel people, like we have a separate group for those who lost with suicide. And starting in the fall, we're going to have a facilitator meet with them once a month. We have a chat and connect group. When the groups are over, and maybe some time goes by, maybe a kid is getting married, we re-grieve. Like
True.
when we have a grandchild, we re-grieve. When our kid is getting married, we re-grieve. And you need to have that grief talk with a group, a support group. So we have a chat and connect group that they meet afterwards. If sometimes their group breaks up, who gets married, who moves. So they always have this support. So everything that I felt like I needed or I seen, this is a little bit different. They need a little bit more support here. Those are the groups that I put together, these subgroups. Some of them took off, some not so much, but they're there if they want it. A separate group for those with little kids. For those kids,
I love it.
Yeah, all these little. So I think that's the artist in me, like that I have a creative part of my thinking. Like, we need to do this. Like, it keeps coming out. Like, I feel like I need to do something else. Like, this isn't enough, And I have guest speakers come in. So I hope that you'll be one of our guest speakers that comes in and it speaks. We have like 2 or 3 that come in a year that talk to us about different things with grief. I had someone talk about online dating and the scamming because we stay connected. So that sometimes, they want to go online and there's all these scammers. So I like to protect them. They all say I'm like the mother bear, and I am. I worry about their vulnerability and I don't want anyone to get hurt. And I try to protect them. I screen it. Comes in those Facebook group. I don't have an open Facebook group. It's private.
That's good.
I have one that's public and one that's private, because I want to protect the people in the group.
Well, you just mentioned that, there's widow hunters, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been hunted.
Real thing. It's
Yeah,
a real
people
thing.
took
Yeah.
my tried to put a lien on my house because when
Oh
my
my
husband,
goodness.
yeah, my husband, when he died, I didn't realize because it was right when a tax was supposed to be paid. So I missed that one tax in May on a property tax, but then I continued to pay the
Right.
other taxes. I just was blank. I didn't even
Right.
know. And all this time passed. I didn't even know that they sold in all like a lien on my house. So
Okay.
I actually called the guy and I confronted him. I said, "You're a widow hunter." I said, "Did you know I'm a widow?" And I just did this whole thing. I said, "Do you know that if you saw me and you looked me in the eye, you would feel shame?" I said, "I'd like to meet you." And I did a whole thing with him. I shamed him bad. You have no idea. Yeah, it was actually funny. And he was like, "Listen, don't worry. It's going to be okay. You just need to do." I'm like, "Listen, you really should think twice before you don't know the story behind these people you're going after." So I spanked him a bit, tell you, Kathryn.
That was
But
good.
yeah,
Deserved it.
yeah. The other you had mentioned, we talked off camera about brain tap, and I think you wanted me to share something about it,
Yes.
but
It was
brain
very
tap,
interesting.
yeah, what'd you say, hon?
I said it's so interesting, and I think that my widows would like to know about what's available for them.
Yeah,
And that brain tapping sounded so interesting.
yeah. It really is fascinating. I use brain tap every night just because for all different things, but it's like a headset and it has lights that go into your optic nerve. I wish I had one of them here. I put it on for you. And then it has things that cover your ears that do binaural beats. And what it's about whole brain health, but we have all these different programs, and there's someone who speaks into each of your different ears, which it's a little weird, but you just don't do anything. It's just like you just relax and breathe, and you would be surprised what happens. So you go into like a theta brainwave, which is more of like a hypnotic state. That's what children are in between the ages of 0 and 7. So that's how we get programmed. So when a traumatic loss happens, we get this like a major thing happens to our neurological network in our body and all of our cells. It's it's all cellular memory and all of that. But what we want, and we don't want it to become one long emotional response. So what we do, we have a grief program, but we also have all different programs for weight loss and for like I always listen to ones that like are about like changing my thoughts to being like
Positive.
vibrant and
Yeah.
alive and just so what it does is it literally like you kind of zone out. I mean, you're able to get up or whatever, but it literally rewires your brain.
It's
And
like working with the neuroplasticity of your brain. It's
yes,
changing your
exactly.
brain. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And also like in therapy, like you want to, I make videos about this, that it's so easy to find a therapist who's not great because there's so many people out there that
So
just go to
many.
school for it. And I think it is really super important to you're like, what you should look for when you're looking for a therapist, if this helps anybody who's
For
having a
grief.
hard
Yeah.
time. It's like you really want to know, to walk out, just know that you're not that you don't feel judged, that you feel that they see you, that they connect, that you feel to me the relationship initially is the most important thing. I tell everyone here it has to be that a genuine thing, not just and then the you it's really the therapist is supposed to be an expert at asking questions that bring you to a place where you see yourself, so that once we see ourselves and we have an awareness of what's happening, like that's we can become free,
Mhm.
and it's like so we want to understand the person to help, not to tell them what to do, but to help them to understand themselves. That's like so
That's such a good
important.
therapist to do that. And
Yes.
we need to feel validated. That's why I was so
Yes.
insulted, because her clothes, even if she was listening to me with her eyes closed, I didn't feel validated by her doing that. It was like she shut me off.
Yes.
So that's so important to do that in grief, to feel
Yes.
validated and to change the negativity that we experience, because it kind of takes over everything. I tell people in their journaling to write gratitude and the things they're grateful for, to grow that part of their brain, because
Yes.
we can't get out of this negative thinking and everything's, oh yeah, sure, that happened to me. Because everything bad happens to me state, right?
Yes.
It's
You
an
know,
awful state.
it's so awful, and it's weird, like, as a therapist, finding the balance between allowing someone to feel and share, and then helping them change the thinking, the feeling, and the behavior that all supports one another in order to no longer be a victim. You can be someone who's hurt, but not a victim, which is an identity, right? So
Right.
it's really not allowing, because it can take root. If somebody thinks something for 16 seconds, right after that, the way our bodies work is that because our thoughts are on a loop, we think, but you probably heard this a million times, but um, we think between like 65 to 90,000 thoughts a day. And 91% of those thoughts are the same thoughts we thought yesterday. So if somebody comes in and they have a traumatic loss, but they already had a life where they felt like a victim, let's say, if they were already in that state, what we find is that someone who has, because we look at what's on the thought loop, the thoughts that we think the most, the only way to get out of those thoughts is to create new ones, and develop them. And they're actually creating a neurological network, which is not as potent as the one there. And you just keep creating it until it becomes obsolete, but not gone. So what I was going to say is that the chemical, our emotional state, we become addicted chemically to the feelings that we feel the most. So our body will create receptors for for emotional states. So if somebody, let's say, was very sad as a child, so that maybe they felt alone or whatever. Now, so we're not just dealing with grief, and then the life that they're having and how that's being triggered, but is this one? So then, are they chemically addicted to that feeling? And you have to almost go through a withdrawal. But if you know that you're going through a physiological withdrawal, it'll pull you back to go back into that state, because our body doesn't want us to change because it doesn't think we're safe.
I
So
get it. Yeah.
isn't this like supposed to be,
Yeah.
whose
It's so
podcast? Am I on
intense.
your podcast or are you on mine?
Yeah, no, it's really important because this is so intense that people don't understand this, and you're
Yes.
explaining it so beautifully that, previous things that happened to us in our childhood connect with our grief. And a lot of
Yes.
people don't know that. And when I
Yes.
see somebody that's really stuck, like in their grief for a long period of time, I talk to them and we talk and I say, like, I don't know about your childhood, but you may need more help. You may need EMDR, and they may need to go back in your past to see what's connecting to your grief. Because I
Yeah.
see grief so much, I know who's stuck because of the grief and who has
Yes.
something else that they never dealt with.
Yes.
They see the difference, and
Yes.
I'll encourage that. And I also say, if you're seeing a therapist and you're not improving, then change your therapist. It's not your friend. No, it's so simple. They're paying someone and they feel like, well, I don't want to start all over with someone else. I actually had to have someone stay with their therapist, seek another therapist. I gave them someone who did EMDR before they could leave the first, because it's another loss.
It
And we're
is.
going through grief. So, and then they started with the new one and it helped them. 3 years they were struggling and no
It's
one helped them with that.
that drives me crazy. That's why we do what we do here, because I hate that.
Me
There's
too.
it's really even more painful, I think, to be with a therapist that doesn't get you or you're not connected to. Like, why even bother?
Well, they connect like a friendship, but they're not helping them
Oh,
go any further in the grief healing. They're
I
like
got that.
they're like telling them they're weak and they're not getting anywhere with what they're going through. Maybe it's because they want to be paid every month. I don't know, or every week. I don't know what their reasoning is, but they're not getting any help that they need. They're not going deep enough to help them. So
It's so funny because, we do group supervision and I have all the therapists around. I'm forgetting we're on a podcast, but it's so funny because I'll say, what's your first question when they walk in the room? And it better not be, how was your week? You know what I mean? Because
Right,
we don't, that's not, that's not therapy.
right.
No, but unless you're listening to the triggers that were happening during the week so that you can help them to, but yeah, I mean that, but one of the reasons why therapists do that is because they haven't been trained not to. That is really it. But
It's
anyhow, I'm forgetting. So tell me everywhere that people can first of all, I understand that people who help and volunteer need to be the right kind of people. I understand that. So I'm not suggesting that everyone in the world like floods you, but I
right,
do
right.
think it would be great if I just want to know how I can support what you're doing, how we can what we can ask. I mean, I want people to join your groups and you have so much to offer.
Well, if someone's struggling in the beginning of their loss, up to 2 years, they can go to my website. It's widowednotalone.com. They can follow me on Instagram under Widowed Not Alone, and they can follow me on Facebook publicly. But if they want more and they need the group support, the bereavement support, they would go to the website and send me an email. And I call everyone back on the emails and we sign them up in a group. And I'm doing that right now for the fall. It's like some groups are already full already. But yeah, so the young group we do virtually because a lot of them have young children.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, we're non-denominational, so there's no religion. That was another thing. I mean, there's some support groups that just are religion based. It's like, what happened to the rest of the people?
No one
It's
else
like
dies.
limitations. Like we do have rules, I do have rules, but they're not like that. They're not to stop people from coming. You know, I have rules like I want everyone to give everyone a chance to share, you know, um, and that kind of thing. But I'm out there publicly, so people could find me easily under Widow
Absolutely.
Not Alone.
I want to just thank you so much for being here. Do you feel like there's anything important that you really want to just share or say to listeners or, anything that has
Just if someone's listening and they're hurting and they've been hurting for a while, that it might be more than just the grief. If they're hurting for a while, they may need to seek, your counseling service, to go deeper into it. And, you know, it's okay to go into the pain to heal because it's like the more we resist, the more it persists.
yes.
The more we try to stay away from the pain, the longer, like for the longest time, I had the PTSD and I was avoiding the EMDR. And, once you go into it, yeah, you weep, yeah, you're tired, yeah, it's exhausting, but then you feel better.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like pushing the beach ball down. It's
I
gonna
always
come
say,
out at some point. Yeah, you gotta let it up because you gotta get it out because that's our part of healing. And people get sick when they hold a lot of this stuff in. It's not healthy for us to hold in these emotions and this pain and this trauma, what it does to our system. So, besides doing grief work, if it's a long time for someone and they feel like they need more, they should go for therapy. They need the help to get past that. And eventually my book will come out. I did write a book
yes.
being edited. So I hope that comes out, in the next year or so. And it will be for young widows that are trying to raise their kids solo. And it's a memoir, it's my journey. And it's also my experience of the years that I've been doing support groups and, different people and what I've learned.
I'm sure there's a wealth of wisdom in there that is
Yeah.
just incredibly valuable. I just want to promote it however I can and promote
Yeah.
you and what you're doing. It's just so good, so good. It's
Thank you.
it's just incredible. Yeah, I was going to comment on something you said and I get very like I'm moved by what you're doing because I think that we both don't even realize how big it is. I think it's incredible.
I also want to say that we do it on a volunteer basis, so there's no fees.
I mean, that right there is
This
just,
is we lost an income, and I know that it's difficult. And I never wanted anyone to think that my motives were anything other than I'm sincere. I sincerely want to help people.
you know
There's
what,
no
you come across. completely that way.
Thank you.
We really do. It's very clear, your vulnerability, your honesty, you just pour your life into this. It's an honor to be here with you today. I mean it. I
Thank
really
you.
mean it. And in regard to what you said to listeners, I just want to say, as a fellow widow, that and no matter what situation you're in, whether it doesn't have to be that you're a widow. It could be any loss, and it could be any type of feeling that there's complete despair, because I've had that, and Kathryn's had that. But one, I am certain that there is always a way out, that there's always hope. There's,
Mhm.
never quit before the miracle happens. Because there are really dark days, but they do end. And I will end on this one thing, and I don't know why, maybe it's God, but I remember I would visualize this. I would see, it felt like a bomb like blew up in my life, in my house. So so it looked like there was like fires, and there was like, you didn't know where to stand, and it was smoke and you couldn't see. So I just saw myself. I think it was God leading me. So I just felt like it was like left foot, right foot, that I was walking. If I came upon a fiery hot rubble, I would either to another side, or I'd wait till it came down, or I'd step over it, but I would just keep going. And then I started to notice, as the days were moving, that then there would be less rubble, but there would be like one spark here, and there would be like spaces of time where it was like a smooth walk. And then again, it would be like, but I used this as a way to manage a day that was more difficult. I'm like, oh, this is like a fiery, smoky, it's bad weather today, and I'm just going to keep going, and I'm going to deal with whatever it is and keep going. So it really, really helped me. And now most of my walk is like light and bright, but then there's still really, really dark. No, I can't even call them dark. I don't want to say that. They're very like, um, God, I love him moments. And where is he? And it hurts so much.
Yeah. That always come every now and then. They just pop up, and they say that grief is like love, right? The more you love someone, the more you're going to grieve them.
Yes.
So we're going to grieve them all our lives, and that's okay.
You know what I love? You've probably heard it because you're the grief person, but it's grief is love stuck.
Mm.
Like, where do I put this love that I have,
So I did. I give it to all my groups. I
Yes,
put that love
beautiful.
somewhere. It goes
Yes,
to others. I
yes,
give them a lot of love. I do a lot
yes,
for them, and they appreciate it because
yes,
they know that nobody else stepped up to do this.
yes.
So that's where my love went.
That's good. It's really good because you know what? Like, I do love more. So it's like, it is a way to, I'm gonna think of it that way though. Like it's like, this
Channel
is
it,
where my
right?
love's going. Yes. Yeah, that's
Going
neat.
to others, right? Serving
Yes.
others. That's what
Yeah.
I do.
But
It's
it's
a good
like
feeling.
that love is going, which I never thought of it that way. Like the
Mhm.
love for him is going that way. I didn't, that's cool. Thank you.
That's why I said, because one person died, there's all these people. That was my love for him. If I didn't
Yeah.
love him, I wouldn't be doing this, right?
Yes.
I
Yes.
would have been so broken. I would have just moved forward with nothing. I would have been fine.
I do have to tell you one thing that's really super weird, and then we're going to stop the podcast, but
Okay.
you're going to get it.
You're gonna have to edit it because it's
No, 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 this is good. I
okay.
swear the whole time, I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it. The whole entire time that you're talking, there is a white light heart on your face. And I keep being
Really?
drawn to it.
That's
Yeah.
so funny. I
And it
don't see
keeps
it.
going in. Yeah. And and the thing about it is that, that's one of the signs that I get. My daughter gets these hearts in these really weird places. And
Mhm.
it's just like, right. And that's like, I just wanted you to
Sweet.
know that. It's
That's sweet.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sweet.
So
Thank you so
thank
much for the opportunity to expose my group to your listeners. I appreciate it.
thank you so much for just pouring your life into people who really need it. And I think that, uh, you know, I I just want to support all of it however I can. And, whatever you need from me, I will do. And it's not me trying to look for clients. That's the
I
last.
know
I'm
that.
not. It's really genuinely, I want to contribute. Yeah. To help where I need help. All right. So it's a wrap.